This evening, we are welcoming the police chief of Sag Harbor, McGuire. And I just want to turn some attention onto some programs we have coming up. Tomorrow we have the flexing dance class. If you don't know what flexing is, it is a type of street dance that was developed, I believe, in Brooklyn, and the individual who is putting on the class is named Cal. He was part of our Lay Rhythm dance party, if you remember that. That will be tomorrow. Next week we have a big artist book fair where all of the books will be signed by artists and will be for sale, with all the proceeds going to benefit our first exhibition catalog for our summer show. There will be a talk with Jerry Salsa as well, followed by a talk on Sunday with our current artist in residence, Drew. Oh, good.
Very so chat.
The interview started. So yeah, check out our website. We have a lot coming up. There's definitely something for everyone here at the church. Now, back to this evening. McGuire has lived in Sag Harbor for 23 years and has been the chief of police since 2016. Prior to that, he held numerous positions at the East Hampton Police Department for over the course of 18 years. So let's give it up for AJ and Gornik.
Thank you. I'm really delighted to see everybody here tonight. AJ, I would say, in a sense, reintroduced himself to me not that long ago. It was last October. Eric and I were walking down 114 minding our own business, about to turn on our street when a truck hit me from behind, and I broke my elbow and my shoulder, and I wasn't unconscious. I'm perfectly fine. This isn't about that, but it's trauma. So I'm lying there, and Eric's just being the best husband ever. He's a little hysterical. He would be wonderful. And then a shadow crossed my vision, the sky, which was just the sky since I was on my head. And I was like, I know that person. It's AJ. And AJ said, "Don't get up on my account." Which, had I been in a lighter mood, I would have definitely laughed. But, this is kind of the definition of someone who's there when you need them to be, beyond, times 100,000. And I've always, you're just so ridiculously affable. I can't imagine there's one person in this village who's not fond of you, but there's always some crazies. Yeah, we're not going to look for that tonight anyway. But we had a conversation recently, just in preparation for this talk, and one of the things that hit me so hard is that AJ started life-saving, basically as a lifeguard in East Hampton as a kid. He was 15 years old. And I realized he's just been life-saving ever since. That's your life is about safeguarding people, and it's a high-stress environment, but you give an air of gracefulness and calm to it every time I've seen you in any kind of action. So I think that that's really astonishing. But can you tell about how you started out lifeguarding, for instance?
I was a swimmer as a kid, and I worked for the town. So when I was 15, I worked for the parks department, but then we just moved on. So took the lifeguard test at 17, and then elongated my college career for 6 years. So I wound up doing 10 seasons, and then after college. So it was a lot better job than picking up trash and birds.
Yeah.
But I actually lifeguard pretty much just fun. My life as a young man pretty pushed me towards what I do now.
And then the winter when you were just tapping your foot waiting for the season.
Well, when I was in college, the only thing that kept me in college was knowing that I was going to come back to the lifeguard in New Hampshire.
but then you didn't become a professional lifeguard, which you said is a thing, which I didn't even realize. Can you?
There's tons of, actually, East Hampton Village now has somebody who's, I don't know if he's full-time, but somebody like an aquatic person. So I thought that maybe, Baywatch was, so I thought maybe I would go somewhere, either Florida, California, somewhere like that, and become a professional lifeguard because I really love doing it. But I also love to stand up on the East End, and I really, as I thought it out, I was 23 years old, going like this probably, so it seems like a good idea, but probably is.
And how did you win your way to?
Well, I actually knew when my father said to me when I was a senior, and I told him, like, he was like, when I was graduating college, so I went to college, I was in college for 6 years after high school, and went part-time, didn't know what I was doing, just kind of wanted to figure out what was going on, and at some point I was like, wow, I'm actually going to graduate, like, I'm going to have enough credits to graduate, so I thought, I go, Dad, I'm going to graduate in May, and he was like, okay, so what are you going to do? I said, I think I'm going to be like a professional lifeguard. He said, no, seriously, what are you going to do? So, I said, well, maybe I'll, he goes, the policeman, and we have police in our family, and I really considered it, so I started taking tests, and after college, moved out here for the summer, and I left.
And when you were in college, what were you majoring in?
Psychology.
So that's another life.
It's another, also it's one of the things that I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no real direction. I wasn't a great student.
Yeah.
And I just, I started with college, obviously I didn't get it, but
That's two questions related to this. So did you ever see anyone from Canada? Really? It, like the East Hampton, did you all see the film that a woman named May Jean made about the lifeguard and training in East Hampton? It's famous, and their program has actually gone elsewhere in the United States, so I can't imagine a much more.
So I was there before that program. I was there with the same people,
Oh, really?
the Ryan family, before that program. So it was a different thing that we did. So now that they're moving kids at 5, 6, 7, 8 to they want to drown proof the East End, which they did, which is not so fun for lifeguards, you know, safety. Yeah, when I worked there, so I was there in East Hampton as a lifeguard from 88 to 97. When I left, I was a deputy chief lifeguard when I left. And at the time, I was also working part-time as a police officer at Sag Harbor.
And you've kept up with them, with lifeguarding, skill training and stuff?
So I take my test every 3 years.
Wow.
So I don't know what the math is on that, so.
I'm just sort of against because I'm not an ocean person. I love to swim, but oceans are just, it's just too scary for me. So anyone who's willingly down there, especially say
It was a lot of fun.
And how about the psychology training?
I mean, that was a real basic early on training. I mean, this job is more of a on-the-job kind of thing. You can't really teach what we do in the class to effect.
Can you talk about that some more? Because I would think like, oh, we took psychology, this is good, now I have some basic ways of dealing with crisis situations, or, I mean, everybody who's a psychologist, I think, thinks of getting somebody on the couch in front of them and then going, and how did that make you feel? But obviously, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, so it was basic psychology, so I never progressed to like clinical therapy or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, I had a basis, like when I saw stuff, I knew it, but it's also more life skills, being able to deal with people. Maturity has a lot to do with it, and you're also not dealing with someone in a clinical setting. Someone's not coming in and lying on the couch and saying, this is what happened to me, and these are my feelings. You're dealing with people in very static environments that can change in a second. And we discussed that.
Yeah, I would love for you to elaborate on that because I thought it was fascinating. I think you said at one point that you give your best while people are at their worst. Like you have to be so on your game when people are at the absolute nadir of their behavior.
In what we do, people people don't invite, we don't get invited to a wedding or a birthday party unless someone's having a heart attack or they're fighting each other.
Maybe you've been to a couple weddings.
So, and that's, it's that environment we talked about, when I'm in your kitchen, I come in your kitchen, and when I go in the house and I'm in somebody's kitchen, there's knives, there's implements of destruction. So, where are your knives? Where are they? What I'm looking at is everything. I'm not just looking at, just you. I'm kind of taking in the whole environment.
Are you sort of like photographing and memorizing the minute you go?
I don't know. I've been doing it for so long. I don't know what it is, but it's just a thing that you do. Like it's just, I guess, environmental awareness.
But to me, it seems almost like a superpower. And is this something
It's
that?
It's a survival instinct.
I don't know. Because there'd be a level of, there's the information, and then there's computing with the information. So now you know where the knives are. Now you have to work with someone's fluctuating mood swings or volatility, and then where are the exits, and where's your backup? Do you need that? I mean, I just can't imagine the amount of factors that you have to kind of shuffle through at light speed in order to make yourself feel that you're securing a dangerous situation, potentially dangerous situation.
Yeah, I don't think, like I said, I've been doing this for so long, I don't know if I could actually break it down to, because it's basically, I've been doing it more than half my life now, so, and I've had a lot of experiences, I'm very lucky that I've had that, and it's just a different way of seeing things. Yeah, it's changed me definitely. I don't think like normal people.
Yeah. Eric, and that, do you remember the TAC company that was down there?
Yeah, sure.
There's a security company that used to do high-level security. It was down near the 7-Eleven. So we're always going to call that the 7-Eleven.
20 Long Island Avenue.
20 Long Island. And Eric had met the guy who runs it, and he was talking to him about how he trains people and goes into security situations by observing how he can interfere at a point of danger. But even that is different if you're guarding a place that's consistent. It's so different from being called to a moment. Do you have any stories about that? You must have employed some psychology at various times.
Well, I guess the thing that actually keeps it interesting is you never know what you're going to get. I mean, even right now. I mean, you just don't. It's going to happen now. Right now. I was thinking something when I was driving here, and just about what we're talking about. Remember that guy who had the plane, who did the crazy loopy thing? Yeah. So
the guy who flew too low. That one
Yes.
time. Yes, I do because I flew right over.
right.
It's terrifying.
Yes. So I left work and I'm heading up Division Street towards this way on the other side. And I think it was about this time of year. It was kind of warm outside, the window open, and I heard the noise. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I looked in my rearview mirror and I see this plane. Someone,
Yeah, you're not supposed to see a plane in
well,
your
if you were in your rear, so he was that low, I mean, 100 feet or whatever it was. And the thing was, like, I was like, oh, he's in trouble. He left his Hampton airport. He's in trouble. He's heading for the water lake. And I guess most people, and I knew, like, my police officers I had seen them because I was driving around, and they were right down the corner of Division and basically by back. And they were on tracks. So I knew they were right there also. So I don't know what normal thinking is. My thinking was, okay, this guy's going in the water. He's in a great spot because I have places to put fire trucks and ambulances in Longworth. I have the harbor master's office, which has a bath, 2 bathrooms. It's 5 o'clock, so the beverage store's open, so I can get water and Gatorade, and I can just order pizzas and have them run down depending on how long this thing takes. Not like, oh my gosh, it's,
Yeah.
literally like, okay, we're good. Like, this guy's gonna crash, he's in a good spot.
Yeah. Because I was looking at that plane going, ah.
But then when he started doing, when he didn't land in the water, I was doing road gate, now I'm thinking of something different.
Yeah.
And remember like going and just parking somewhere and just being like, okay, I'm here, and whatever happens. It wasn't funny, but he winds up going back to the airport. My officer finds out who it is, because her uncle's a pilot, and they have that thing you can find flight track or whatever. She calls him, and he says, "Hi, can I call you back? I'm trying to make my plane right now."
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
So he was really
He
clueless
was
as
just
to the
kind of
effect
doing
that it was
his,
having.
yes, and he scared the heck out of a lot of people.
Did he lose his license for that?
Pretty sure.
Good. All right, because yeah.
He actually
that's-
been charged criminal.
Yeah. But I mean, that makes me, that brings up the eternal question that we all face, which is that you find out about somebody doing something that's batshit crazy. And you figure they are crazy. I mean, like, what is, there are psychotic people, there are sociopathic people, I can, kind of.
There's dumb people.
There's dumb people. There's, I guess, people with such overriding egos that they don't realize the danger that they might be putting someone.
What they were doing, dumb people, in fact, they have more people.
Yeah, but I mean, that in itself would be a hard thing to parse quickly.
Yeah.
In a situation, a sudden, like, crisis situation. You were telling me that mental health and police work is one of the hardest things that you deal with, if not the hardest.
Well, I think we have we do have a mental health crisis in this country, in this area. The clinicians or the people who take care of it, we do not have, be it, and I think we all realize that being out here on the East End, that we are so really, it seems like every year we get more and more like isolated out here for different things. And
How do you mean? Like, is
well,
this like...
Well, the services we get. If you live in New York City, you have many more services available to you in Nassau County. But now, on the East End, and all the traffic and everything that goes with it, not as many people are coming out, not as many people want to stay out here, not what they can afford to stay out here. And we had maybe a year ago or so, as you know, all those like Southampton moving to the Southampton College campus at some point. And if we need to take somebody for a psychological emergency evaluation, we have to take them to Stony Brook Hospital, which pretty much is as far away as we get from New York City. And that's a 4-hour trip for 2 police officers to take one person. So as we're having conversations, say we should hit, and that's the only psychological emergency room in Suffolk County. So
It's huge.
yeah,
Really. I
that
didn't
is
realize
1.5 million people.
Yeah.
So we said, I hope you are thinking of incorporating a psychological emergency room on the East End here in Southampton. They're not.
Oh, they're not?
Oh, they're not.
Oh, I thought when you said that that was going to be part of the
They have improved, Suffolk County has improved some health services. We do telehealth.
Mhm.
So we can go basically whatever app it is, basically a FaceTime call, and you can talk with a clinician, person who's stressed, and talk with a clinician, and now the onus is on them rather than the police officers.
That's still remote in a situation like that. Just seems like the wrong prevailing attitude.
If in July, in the middle of the day, if we have, there's a mobile crisis team which is at a hot pod. They try to put it in Riverhead. They have it off and on Riverhead. So we have a mobile crisis team with clinicians and companies who will come out, 2 or 3. But if I call on a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock and say, hey, we need a mobile crisis team here for Riverhead,
How in the world,
Yeah.
unless they're helicoptered in?
Which we haven't gotten that far yet because it's a lot, but that could happen at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. You were also mentioned when we were chatting before that you need more CPAP provisions. The heart. Didn't you talk about that? Something about are the CPAP machines the things that help with heart attacks and stuff like
Oh,
that?
we do it.
Yeah.
Well, we're good.
You're good.
Yeah, we have as many of those as we need. They're actually, they've come down a lot of price, so we have,
So you have enough equipment. It's just like the.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we are well equipped. Same old police force. We're very well equipped.
And this also, you were the head of the fire department here.
I'm hardly the head of the fire department. hold an elected office.
We're firemen, sorry.
So I've been in the fire department over 20 years now. I've been an officer in the fire department. I just got reelected. Yeah. Actually, no, I've been an officer in the fire department for a lot of years, but now as a operational officer as opposed to I was the treasurer. Yeah. So yeah.
How did you weren't here that long before the cinema fire happened.
That was my first year here. That was the end of my first year.
What a way to start. And how did that?
So, being in the fire department, Tommy Gardella, who's our deputy mayor, was fire chief at the time. And I remember I had to drive my daughter to school at whatever time. And the pager goes up. Now, you know, it's really in bed this time in December, you hear the wind.
Yeah.
And the pager goes off right away, and I'm like, please don't let me know. And you feel it, and then they put it out, and I think it came out over as a deck fire to the rear of Sag Harbor. So I get out of bed, and I'm getting dressed, and somebody was on the road. Somebody got there, and they told me that they worked construction fire, and now the wind. I know the wind's like, it's not good. And then Tommy got there and started calling for additional resources because I'm coming. I'm like, this is good. So I came from Noyak down this way and north on Main Street, and it was 6:20, and it was blacked out. The sun was just coming up, it was blacked out.
Blacked out, you mean the smoke?
It was smoke. You couldn't see smoke. It was the smoke. The wind was blowing from the west and just literally blew everything across the street. And it was, I think, it was very cold. It was like super freezing. Like, of course, it has to happen on Wednesday, so it happened at 50 degrees and stuff. So when I got there, my first thought was, somebody's going to die. We're going to have it.
Mm-hmm.
Not maybe a fire related inside fire, but somebody's going to slip and fall because your head starts rolling like, well, once you start shooting water, everything freezes. Literally within a minute, everything freezes.
Has anybody here seen pictures from that fire? The firemen's helmets literally had icicles hanging like this long off the edges of the helmets. It was astonishingly challenging conditions, to say the least.
I would say that.
Yeah.
So when we began the fire department, had a relationship I had with the chiefs. Tom was in the back of the building. That's where we go originally. He was the first chief there, and he said it was in the rear building, so in the rear. I was Bruce Gornik, was the first chief in front of the building, and I set up the command post. And you just like take, when you do this for a while, you realize like a minute, taking 30 seconds, that feels like 5 minutes really is. So you need to like kind of just take your breath and take a view around to see what's going on.
Like not spring into action.
Well, it's just like, yeah, don't lose your mind.
Yeah.
30 seconds, 30 seconds. So my first thought is, somebody's going to die, it's going to fall on the ice, and we have a lot of older members, and we're going to try and help. And how many ambulances do we have? Because we're fairly certain Randy Steyer was a cop, he had vacated the resident in that building. So my concern was now, for firefighters, we need ambulances where we go. Because we can't put them on Main Street because Main Street's like spaghetti.
Oh my God, I never thought of that.
With hoses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I just kept going. I knew those guys had the fire part of it. They were the fire suppression, the fire out, but I was trying to help with what else we could do. We called a state of emergency. We have a state of emergency. Government has to do, I have to go through procurement contracts. If I'm going to buy gasoline, I have to buy it from this person who has a county contract or a state contract or whatever the case may be. So we're going to have however many fire trucks we had on Main Street and ambulances, we need diesel fuel.
Mm-hmm.
So now I would just call up somebody, a local company, and say we need diesel fuel. We don't have to procure it, we just get it that. It's silly like nuances that just makes me laugh. Why you think of it. Yeah, that was a long day. We talked about this. So I literally got out of bed. I didn't brush my teeth. I went to this fire. I was there the entire So I thought, well, if we're gonna have a press conference, can I at least give you like time to go home and take a shower? Which they were kind enough to do, let me do, but yeah, I mean, that's, we'll come up.
Tell us, we want to be the first to know. I hope it's nothing
I knew that was,
serious.
I understand.
Don't leave. So,
Well, my children are away, so I'm good.
AJ has two daughters. One is in high school, one's in college.
My daughter who's,
I don't know.
oh, that's not right. Sorry, I get it.
We arranged this so you could have
Yeah.
a live demonstration of how they spring into action.
So, sorry, so now I get to understand.
No, I just wanted to ask if your daughters.
So my daughter, I have a daughter who's 18, who's a freshman at Indiana University. She loves it. She's doing well. I have another daughter who's a junior at Pearson. She's currently in Costa Rica.
Nice schooling if you can get it.
So yeah, we were just texting before I got here.
Are either of them interested in police?
No. It's changed. I mean, it's changed so much in the year.
But you've done an amazing amount of stuff. That's it.
Open bar. What did you do?
Oh,
Somebody burned something in the backyard in North End.
but you've diversified the force.
I have, yeah.
Tell about it.
So, you know, I came in, whatever it is, we had some older folks who left, and if anyone, it's been quite a road with police reform and all the stuff that COVID, other reforms, I mean, it's kind of been a long road. So, you know, people say, well, how come you haven't really diversified the police force so you can do, because civil service law holds us to a standard. I can't just go out and say, I want to hire you, I want to hire you. I have to hire based on a village residency list. So you have to be a village resident of Sag Harbor. You have to be in the top 3 of scoring candidates.
Are these village laws or these
These
civil
are
laws?
New York State civil service laws. And we can't change it because the village can't change it because it's a state law. So it's good and bad, and I can't imagine they don't know this. But we basically handpick who we want to hire based on, because, you know, a kid, a 24, 25-year-old kid's going to get an apartment in Sag Harbor for an apartment while they're working as a part-time police officer. They get hired as a full-time police officer. So we find them places where they find places. It's kind of, it's the, I won't call it the dirty little secret. It's not dirty little secret, but they do this in West Hampton, East Hampton Village, Quad. It's the same things that everybody do.
I ran into relatives of the first black officer that had been hired
Okay.
for the Sag Harbor Police Department, and they were so proud. And I don't know this person, but
Oh, he's a great kid.
yeah.
He's awesome.
Well, they said he was. They were like, I mean, it was just so sweet, and it just made me really happy because you have been responsible for some firsts and in the department, and including body cam and China. Did you ever see a body cam? I asked AJ if you could bring it in
So
because
of course, April says to me, I've heard promise. So I'd like to recognize Stephen White's here. He's a council here for the village. She helped me get a big time grant for body cameras for the state. So this is one of, I believe, 16 that we have. So every full-time police officer, except myself, the lieutenant, who's mostly administrative, will have one assigned themselves. So, and then we'll have 4 extras if one breaks, or we have part-time police officers. It's been a long time coming. A lot of places have done this before. We are actually in Sag Harbor, the only village, the only police department that doesn't have anything. And I got here, but also as you know, like technology changes every 6 months.
constantly.
So why am I buying something that's going to be? But these people are very savvy. This is Axon. This is the Taser company. We all should invest in this. this about 20 years ago. They have the assurance plan, like if somebody better comes in tomorrow, if they have a better camera, I get it, send these back. So these officers wear these on their chest somewhere. You press this button. I practiced this before. It's supposed to work.
It's okay, we just give a general idea of how it works.
So these stay on, it says ready now, which means they're like on standby. So I should be able to push this and it goes on. I obviously need more training. I literally, when I bring a body camera, I was on YouTube like trying to figure out how to work the thing. So
I made a break by asking you to break it, of course.
So actually, I obviously need more training on that. So yeah, we will be deploying them in the next few weeks once we get them up and ready. And like I said, every officer will have it. They have charging stations, so you can basically, when you work, you wear it, you take it off, you stick it in the charger, it uploads all the videos automatically to a cloud-based system, so we don't have anything in the building. And so, yeah, and then, I mean, it's the trend. It's something that should have happened before, but now we have the funding and we're getting going just about, I think every 8% now is that.
Well, it's not like we're known for violent crime here, and yet it just seems like the right thing to do in this day and age.
And I believe I told you this, 99.99% of the time, this is going to improve an officer right, with false allegations or whatever. And it's great for evidential purposes, for arrests and everything, but great for training. So I'm happy we have it, and they should be out in the next couple of weeks.
One of the things that was most moving to me about the Sag Harbor Police Department was learning about the way that you all dealt with a guy who was a homeless gentleman who was here. He was originally from Cuba. His name was Pedro Morales. I see a lot of you going like, yes, you read about it. Is this familiar to everybody? Because, I think of police as being people who get in there. I mean, you're ready to sacrifice everything for the common good, and that's amazing and very brave. But there's also a level of empathy that happened in the way that you dealt with him. Can you talk about that, please?
Sure. Pedro had been here for years and had been domiciled for over the course of, 20 years probably, that I knew about. And sometimes he had a place to stay, sometimes he didn't have a place to stay. He was a very nice man. He was actually pretty interesting guy. He was a professional soccer player at one point. That's how he got to the United States. And then kind of did his thing, had some substance abuse issues and, worked with those, but he was always very affable. He was a likable guy. But I think what we were talking about is we would occasionally put him in jail.
Yeah.
Just because on a cold night, it's like, where's Pedro? And he was very, I'm good, I'm fine. I'm like, no, you're not. And if he had a few drinks, we'd be like, just take him to jail and we'll deal with it tomorrow. And at least he knew where he was. But he wanted for nothing. He was a very quiet man who just kind of lived his life how he lived it.
Because you and other people were taking care of him.
Yes.
And how wonderful is that? That killed me when I was reading about him, because I've always seen him around the bridge, usually hanging out with a paper bag and whatever in it, and or napping. He seemed like Ferdinand the Bull or something, like the most gentle, peaceful person, and with a sweet countenance. But I never bothered to try to get to know him or just say hi. There were a couple other people I talked to around here, but not him. And then reading about the way that you not only were keeping the peace generally, but you were actually looking out for people like him, I just think it's phenomenal. It's so moving. It's like it's one of the greatest examples of this as a community I can think of. I was really knocked out by that. And you speak of it so matter of factly, but to, I think the average person, it's really quite impressive. I mean, like it's a level of care.
Well, I
And
mean,
it's
I
a
should
level
say
of
what you speak as a
life-saving.
obviously, on police officer for, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's team effort, but
Yeah.
it's amazing. And in fact, he was also, I read elsewhere that he was a great film historian, according to Kathy Creedon, because he spent days in the library just looking at and researching and enjoying foreign films. Of the people that are here that we don't even know about, I mean, he would have been a great knowledge writer, but that's not his evening, this is yours, so back to you. But I just wanted you to talk about that because I think it's so great. Anything else to add?
No,
What about the, and I would like to, I'd ask you about this, but I bet everybody's curious. You know the young people that show up on the street? The young policemen that are here, the TCOs?
yes.
Can you tell about them and how they end up working?
It's like a prison sentence. It's a horrible job. It really is. I can't believe that actually the kids come out every year and apply for it. And we pay them well, better than most municipalities. But if you look at my daughter who was punching a cash register at Sag Coffee and making $10 more an hour than they were. It's really for someone. We started probably like 16 years old, and it's like it's grueling because you're basically standing on pavement in pants, and it's. So I said, so like we were talking about something to save money. So why don't we give them sneakers? And so I said, well, the sneakers. If you give them sneakers, it doesn't prevent the heat coming through like a boot. I'm like, well, that just sounds miserable. It's horrible. So I was never a traffic control officer myself. So there's a lot of kids who have gone that way because they're looking to get into law enforcement. Like Courtney Thomas spoke of, Bruce Cantrell, Michael Arkinson, who's our head TCO now, he's going to graduate from police academy in a month. Then he'll start the part-time process as a part-time police officer. I mean, I've had a lot of great kids. I've had a lot of kids come back. We're having a challenging time this year trying to recruit people. But I think there's just so much opportunity elsewhere unless you have a real interest in getting into law enforcement. You can get much better gigs somewhere else.
And I guess this is the right time to mention because as we were talking, of course, the conversation went to affordable housing, like it does every single conversation about any problem in the village or in the East End. And are you losing members
So
of
we're not going to
police
lose
force?
anybody at this point. I can say that out of 13 members, there's 2 of us who live in Sag Harbor. 2 live in East Hampton, the remainder live over the canal. Courtney, the part-time officer, and Louis, they live here. Louis lives in Bridgehampton, and Courtney lives in the village. But he lives with his grandma, he's 24 years old. So what that'll become years from now. So I was at a friend's wedding in Sag Harbor 19 years ago. And I meet a police officer on State Street, and he said, "Oh, do you live in Santa Barbara?" And he laughed. And you're talking about Santa Barbara City Police Department, which I don't know how big it is, but it's pretty big. And he goes, "No, we don't have anybody who lives in the city of Santa Barbara.
Wow.
We all commute." But then again, they have freeways. They have, they're not sitting on 27, 39, or Black Road. They have a little more, the commute's a little easier.
Yeah, they're not doing the
It's going to be an issue. It's going to be an issue. I don't have anyone who travels that far now. Manderville, I think, would be the farthest. I did have an officer who lived in Farmingville, who lived for 20 years, which, I don't know what that is, but, so,
there.
there's some, yeah. So yeah, it's going to be an issue going forward.
Do you have a wish list for your department? I mean, besides perhaps getting a contract, which, as I understand from the paper, you do not have a contract right now, which is insane. But do you want to talk about that?
No, I don't.
No.
Thank you though for the opportunity.
You can have the lead story tomorrow too. coming out.
Georgia wouldn't like that. She wants
That's true, that's true. And do you have like a wish list for the department, things like?
I can tell you I've been very lucky and I've been very supported on that end of having what I need. I think we need, we had a staffing study that Kathleen Mulcahy, under her administration, that came out after she left office, that basically said, at some point, I can say as much as I want, but I also want somebody else that can say they need more people, but we need a professional study. So I had one done, and I actually didn't use any taxpayer funds, maybe like $1,000, but I had donations that I used for this, and they said we needed to increase the police department by 3, and one of those 3 was we were to make a supervisor, somebody would be a supervisor. There was more full-time police officers when I worked here in 1997 than we have now.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Attrition, and I'm not putting anybody on the spot with this one. This was the whole East End was such a seasonal community that it's not anymore. We are by far a seasonal community. Yes, of course we have our seasonal surges, but we are not a seasonal community.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, but can you, so it's an interesting dichotomy, I guess, of how you staff winter and summer. I thought I was going to have my traffic people here tonight. If you look at numbers, we have well over 100,000 vehicles going through this village. So I have different tools I put out.
That's like in July?
In the summertime. So we put one up on 114 at the exit entrance of the village. And we're doing well over 100,000 cars going past that in a week.
Oh my God.
And that's, but that's also not counting. So it's hard to get like an accurate count to say this many cars come through, because how many people come to your shop, how many people come to your dinner or whatever, walk around. So, we have, there's, the Whalers did not build this village to take the traffic that it has now.
Yes.
And I don't know what the fix is, I'll be honest with you. We've just now, like you said before, we have so many people commuting to the East End that would I rather sit on 27 and 39 in traffic, or maybe I'll take the back road, which might be a little quicker, and I get to see the water and drink coffee. So this is just one of the routes that go to the East End. It's kind of, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if anyone knows what the answer is.
I don't think anybody knows what the answer is. I think the growth has been too much of a spurt,
and we're about to get into the really heavy stuff now with landscapers, all the service folks are going to be coming out here to do their thing, and you have to also think about us getting to places. So what takes us, emergency calls, everything else, we have times when it's like constant gridlock here.
Mm-hmm.
So it slows down our response times. It slows down volunteers being able to get to the firehouse or the ambulance to get the ambulance out. It does take a toll on stuff.
I'd like to open it up to questions from the audience, if anyone has one. No more questions. Roll. Gosh.
Thank you very much for coming and sharing with us. I'm curious, what's been your most serious law enforcement challenge over the years out here in Sag Harbor?
So we talk about traffic. We are blessed, and I don't want to seem naive, and I don't think of it constantly on a daily basis, but we are fairly crime-free, very crime-free actually.
Don't forget about Payne Avenue murder.
Yes.
The Payne Avenue murder.
When I tell people, my constant conversation more is traffic and parking. And I said, if I'm a police chief, my biggest worry is traffic and parking, and I got a pretty good job. I'm not worried about, we deal with, just like the country, anywhere in the country does, we deal with opioid overdoses. I think we do. I don't know the exact number, but we are Narcan people once a month, once every other month. And the county keeps my lieutenant keeps those records. So we still do see what everybody else sees, but our day-to-day stuff is traffic and parking, which is great. Not as good.
It's all right. Do we have more homeless people that you're aware of than we used to in the village or
Not
around?
that I'm aware of. Are you aware of them? Sure.
Do you count under the bridge at night?
I can tell you that so of the many things we do on 3 tours, so we have 3 tours. So you have to also understand my own police officers don't just work a regular shift. They work a handful of days, they get a couple of days off. They work afternoon shifts, which is 2:30 to 10:30. They get a couple of days off, and then they work midnight shift from 10:30 to 6:30 in the morning, which is absolutely the most horrible thing. You don't realize how bad it is for you until you stop doing it. I did it for 10 years. But on each one of those tours, amongst they do a bridge check because of the stuff we had on the bridge. When we develop, when Steinbeck Park develops out more, we're going to have a plan for cameras. I have a lot of cameras in the village, but until we decide on the final plan, I don't want to spend money that we're going to have to,
Do you check all the village stores?
Yes, you do. You must know that because you must have gotten a call in the middle of the night. So every night,
Up to 30 years ago.
so you must have locked the doors the past 3 years. Every night, we rattle doors on Main Street. Oh.
It's a beautiful thing. Eric, you had a question.
And I don't quite know where, I'm sorry, I don't quite know where else they do that.
Well, I didn't even, this is so full service, it just blows me away. It's somewhere between full service and maybe burying a little piece of heaven, that kind of attention.
I was talking to April on the way over here about remembering when bulletproof vests showed up in the town, and it was such a surprise to see in this small town that that all of a sudden such heavy equipment, and then other things got added to it, and now the cameras and stuff like that, and it's the appearance of it is a much more of an urban kind of force, right? And I'm just wondering what the decision was to sort of go down that route. Were there things going on here in the town that, I know there was like an arrest where these people that were stealing from somebody that wasn't there, and they found the AR-47 or 20, whatever the number is of those rifles. So is there something that legitimizes the heavy armor, or is it something where
So it's
the
actually
state
not, it's
said-
actually not heavy armor. We've been wearing bulletproof vests for 40 years. It's soft body armor. It goes, we used to wear it under our shirts. That, with the belt that you wear, which is 40-ish pounds, takes a heavy toll on your back. These are actually the same vests that were worn on other shirts, or outside the shirts, in carriers. Same exact thing.
So they're less stressful for you.
So they're less stressful on the body. They're much more comfortable. Then nothing changed.
But other than people have a different sense of
I
safety.
guess perceptions, everybody's thing.
Yeah.
So we haven't changed anything. It's just that they wear them on the outside. Most police departments now are wearing them on the outside because they realize that they're hard on the officers' backs and everything else. And they put these little, they're called mollies, the black straps. So they put pens in them or whatever they have, like tool holders. Sort of.
There's a question here. Hi, you mentioned the mental health crisis in our country, and I'm curious what your perspective is on having social workers on police departments or interacting with mental health professionals, and if you would ever foresee that being something that would be out here.
So, April and I had this conversation. I think having someone to call is great. I think taking somebody in the field is very different because unless they're properly trained, and I'm not saying that I'm against it or that it's not a conversation, and that's where the whole knife in the kitchen thing came up. I'm not thinking, my first thought is, I don't want to die. So when I go to somebody's house and you're having a mental health crisis, I'm thinking of the others around you in that house and keeping myself alive. So, and I don't think it's a craft. It's something you learn over time. Like I said, this isn't a job really that you can learn in the classroom. You can teach basics in the classroom, but until you're out there with somebody who's having that crisis in a place and you don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, and I can't speak to what mental health training they have now. It has increased by far in 27 years of me doing this. We did have mental health training there, I recall it. But the thing is that also it's so unpredictable of what you're dealing with. And so you can't really plan for every event. So, no, I definitely think that we need more mental health professionals maybe to even evaluate. And like I said, we are getting more help. We have more people who are coming out, but also you're also getting these young kids right out of their getting their master's degree and coming out and they're going to work for the county to gain experience. When I see people it's 25-year-old kids coming out to deal with a problem because these aren't the best paying jobs, but these kids, I guess, are trying to build their resume. And, the last one we had, when I had young people come out and I'm like, okay, we're going to go get this girl. What happened? I had to send them away and I had to deal with it because she didn't want to deal with them. She would only deal with me. Just because you have to kind of be able to ebb and flow. You have to be able to read it and see what's going to happen. Obviously, you don't want any sort of violence to happen or anything else, but I was able to. And for me to come out of the office, I have to handle this now, really. But you did. It's fine. But yeah, there's definitely this has to evolve into something more. I always thought the police should have more training in that. It should be more than a 7-month police academy. This should be 60 credit master's degree or something like that, where something more like that.
With refresher courses.
Well, with refresher courses, obviously everything's changed. In 27 years, I didn't have a computer in the car. I didn't have a taser. It was pretty bare bones. The tools that you had, the people you were able to call, just kind of went out there and figured it. Basically, survival of the fittest, that you figured it out on your own.
Well, that's the right stuff kind of situation.
Yeah.
And you just hope that your officers have that.
Yeah.
And do you work with young officers kind of on the job if you see them like
Well,
not...
that's the good thing about this is I still get to go be a cop.
Mhm.
I still get to go out and do stuff and go out. There's in the summertime, 1 or 2 days a week I'll have to answer calls because we're too busy. But I get to go out and do stuff that I actually like doing. The chief's not doing a great job. Like being in the field is what I enjoy.
There's Eric and I went to Southampton town employees to give a deposition after the truck thing, and it was taken by a young officer named Eric Jordan, who was studying. He was an amazing person, actually. He was to get a degree in psychology and was interested in orthopedics. And he himself had several operations. He just had brittle bones genetically, that he was turning everything in his life into lemonade. But the thing that got him most excited was when we said that we knew you. We told the story about how you appeared at the accident scene, and he was like, I met AJ once. He was so amazing. He just acted like a normal person. He was absolutely knocked out. And it was interesting because there seems like something special about you to me, but he was really, from a police point of view, verifying that very strongly. So, Mary Ann, sorry.
I have 2 questions. You can take your choice.
Do I get to turn one down? Okay.
So the first one is you sort of mentioned reform, but you were talking about something else. So I'm wondering whether or not in your 27 years, you can give us an example of where there was some kind of reform that sort of changed the course of policing. That's one question. And then the other one, which isn't that different, is what's changed most? And you kind of mentioned like all the equipment that you have now in the car that you never had 27 years ago. But somewhere in that compilation of questions.
So if you follow police reform, when we did it, we had stuff, and we were on Express, we had Express News Session, and if you followed it, I said, well, you know, I think it was called the Reformation, whatever it was called, collaborative. Police departments are constantly reevaluating what they do, how they do it, what the trends are. You know, we're a small police department, obviously, so I mean, I have great friends, you know, neighbors here who I rely on a lot. So you should kind of always be looking at what you're doing and how you're doing it, and we were. So this was, you know, to me, this was, when we did it, it was just a political thing more than anything, because we constantly are doing that. I mean, what's changed? No, it's just the jobs is the same. Technology has changed. You know, we've dealt with, you know, this week I've dealt with 3 different people having their identity stolen or trying to get extorted online for different things. But not much has changed. The population, I guess, has changed a little bit. Diversified, I guess, but I think not much really has changed. It's the same job it was how many years ago? 27 years ago. We're still checking doors, and I don't know who else does that, honestly. It seems to work. One of the merchants on Main Street today was, you know, we still do foot patrol, and they're supposed to do an hour a day, so like 45 minutes to an hour a day. They walk up and down Main Street, and it's more they interact with people so that the merchants know who they are, and they know who the merchants are. And, so I got really good feedback this morning, you know, I literally can't leave my office. Anytime I leave my office, it's like a 45-minute, like if I try to get coffee, it's 45 minutes. So, you know, like, we really appreciate having the officers on Main Street. They're very helpful, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, it's grown, yes, of course, obviously. I mean, Sag Harbor, 27 years ago, for those who were here and remember it, I mean, we had bars, we had nightclubs, we had 4 a.m., we had bar fights, people breaking bottles away. I shouldn't, like, once again, like, we don't have that. I'm pretty sure every place closes by 2 a.m. You know, my first year, I think they opened 3 coffee shops. And like, what do you think about it? Like, I'd rather have, as a police chief, I'd rather have open coffee shops and bars. So, yeah, I mean, but the people haven't changed. The job hasn't changed too, as far as like a service-related thing. We're still doing what we do.
I applaud you. Thank you for everything, because we have a gorgeous town, and thank you for policing in a kind and humane way. When I look at the papers and there are horrible events, it always seems like the police have panicked. They've gone into a situation and they act like I would. They panic and shoot because they have guns. So I foresee a police training where the people can go into a volatile situation and protect themselves and everybody around, but also with something more humane that realizes not everything is a violent confrontation. Some people are very mentally ill or on drugs or so many, or both, so many issues that may not require a really volatile, authoritarian response. So I would foresee training that is more than 7 months and encourages all of these different encounters. You think that's possible in our future?
I think a lot of things are possible. I also think that things are so not necessarily all the police's fault. So, I'll go back to what we discussed earlier. I mean, there's a complete mental health crisis in this country. And all these incidents you're seeing are people who are mentally ill. So that's something that needs to be addressed globally, and as part of the police conversation needs to be addressed as well.
Well, do you watch any police procedurals on TV? And what's your opinion of it?
I'm sorry?
Do you watch any police procedural TV shows?
Such as?
Law and Order?
Oh, yeah, they have, yes, in the past.
Do you have, I mean, I'm thinking something I recently
Well,
read.
they take those shows, they take something that takes 3 years and they stick it in an hour, or 40 minutes with commercials. So it's not realistic, but yeah, I mean, they take something and I think Law and Order actually based stuff on, like real life situations that they throw some spin on, throw some fiction into. But yeah, it's not that bad.
We have a question here.
I think it's very obvious that the nature of policing in Sag Harbor Village is very different than in lots of other places in the country, especially in urban areas. But it strikes me that there's one area where there might be more overlap that we haven't talked about, and it comes up a lot, on the evening news and in horrible incidents that seem to develop from traffic stops at night. And I guess I have a kind of two-part question. One is, to what extent do your officers, or might your officers be influenced by what's happening nationally in that regard, and how it might influence their behavior if they in fact are doing traffic stops at night? Well, let me just leave it at that.
Once again, it's an issue that I can't speak to what goes on outside here, which is a different place. I can say that in my time here, I've had officers take 2 loaded handguns off people during traffic stops. Illegal handguns. Loaded, ready to go. Was in a bag between the kid's legs, and they said, "What's in the bag?" And he said, "I just have some weed." And he goes, "All right, well, he just handed the bag outside the car because the kid kept moving for it." And he took the bag and put it outside the car, and he had a loaded 9mm, which was defaced. He take these serial numbers off it. I don't think anybody watches TV. I certainly don't, and I don't think any of my officers do, and go, "Ooh, this could happen to me." I think you consider it, but you take every traffic stop as for when we meet in the middle of the day and in light and in nighttime. Anytime you stop a car, you're taking a risk. You also have to consider what you're stopping them for, whatever, minor traffic infractions, whatever the case may be. But I don't think that my officers are overly influenced about what's going on in other places. I mean, locally here, like I said, we have good local folks that we interact with and train with. And stuff we do look at.
It's a great argument for cops on the beat, which has become throughout the nationwide less and less a presence. The police just aren't a neighborhood presence anymore. It's like it's so much more removed, and so everything is more like a confrontation.
Well, I think it's more removed because of staffing issues, and we're lucky because our police out here, they're paid well, and maybe not well enough to buy a house, but we don't have issues with recruitment, retention that they have everywhere else in the country. Long Island, Westchester County, they don't have those issues. But pretty much that's the only place. Everywhere else in the country, they're understaffed. Then there's arguments to are they lowering standards? Are they lowering standards to who they're hiring because they need people hired? So maybe something that would have been a disqualifier for me 27 years ago is not a disqualifier for somebody else. Whether an arrest or something. I was never arrested. I probably should have been a bunch of times. Then, you know, if you arrest, I forget what the criteria was years ago, but now they kind of like let a lot of stuff go. So, you know, you're not getting the cream of the crop. I mean, we pretty much get the cream of the crop. I'm going to say, you know, everyone I hire is vetted by me and my lieutenant and 2 sergeants. And usually I work them part-time for a while, so we know how they work. So we're not hiring like New York City does or Suffolk County does, where you kind of go through a background check. And so, you know, these things aren't foolproof. You know, people get through them. Obviously, we see the issues that we have in this country. That, you know, these background checks aren't foolproof. So, yeah, we've done a lot of work, but of course there's work to do. There's constant continuation of what we do.
We have time for one more question.
Just want to thank you and the force. I feel very grateful for people who serve our country and work for the country. I wanted to ask you, because you study psychology and you're also a lifeguard. A lifeguard can save a life physically if they're there on time and have the strength to reach the person and carry them in. It isn't psychological, but when you enter in the field, a home, where it's largely psychological. So I wanted to ask you how we can de-escalate violence. How do you de-escalate potential conflict and violence? What are the most important things to do on the spot, even though you can't determine the outcome?
So we do have de-escalation training. I mean, de-escalation training is part of our training. Experience in doing that is being able to, you know, it's like, just like you and I, we've had some time, you know, we may be long in the tooth, so we have more experience dealing with crisis. You know, we talk about a lot about, like, a lot of these New York City cops, they went to, you know, they're from Long Island, the only 2 towns went to the cities where they went to Radio City and the Museum of Natural History, and now all of a sudden they're middle-class white kids who get shoved into somewhere in New York City. So there's got to be some sort of, you know, interim to, and so I think, you know, we don't determine the outcome. You know, unfortunately, sometimes people deal with determine the outcome. We don't determine it. We give them every opportunity to make that decision, but sometimes because of mental illness or drugs or whatever the case may be, they it lines up how it lines up.
Well, thank you AJ, thank you so much for being here. I think we're just so lucky to have you and the force and your